Welcome back. All right, so on today's episode, we're going to talk about what to expect when you're new to Japan and new to Yokota. So, Yokota is your typical military base. All of the buildings look the same, and it's a little confusing to get around at first. So, the big difference that I've noticed here is that the base is kind of split into different sections. So, there's east side, which is going to be like the hospital side and some housing, and there's a couple schools over there, and that's across the flight line. Yes, we drive across the flight line. It's a little weird, but also kind of cool. And then there's the main side, which is going to be where the post office is, your exchange, the commissary, all that fun stuff. And then you'll have north, which is by the main side, just a little north. And that's going to be mostly housing, and then the terminal, and then there's west side. So west side is actually separated from the base itself. So you have to drive across the street. So you have to exit a gate and then enter another gate, and then you're on the west side. So the nice thing about the west side is that it is quieter, and there is some fields over here, and there's also a big community center. So perks, So one of the first things I'll have you do is take a newcomers class. It used to be held every Wednesday and Thursday. It might just be Wednesdays now, but I'll link down below for that. It's really good information. Also tells you about how to obtain your license while you're here. I would also recommend downloading the AF Connect app, and then you can add Yokota as your base. And it's very convenient because it has the base map, and it'll also connect you to the operator, which means that you can call DSN numbers, which you can't normally do through cell phones. So very useful. I would also recommend checking out the ITT office. They have tons of trips happening every month, all the time. They do tons of stuff from sumo wrestling to even just city trips. So check it out. All right, now I will say there are a ton of Yokota pages, and I mean a ton. So there's a Yokota spouse page, there's a Yokota beauty page, there's a cars page, there's a gaming page. I mean, honestly, if you look up Yokota and what you're interested in, you can probably find something. So definitely make sure to do that. All right, so I think everything else I kind of want to talk about is going to be in my my frequently asked questions video. So definitely make sure to check that out if you are new to Yokota. All right, so let's get down to talking about when you're new to Japan. So the first thing I want to mention is, although we do have a commissary on base, I cannot recommend shopping off base enough. Not only are you going to get more options, but you're also going to save money. So because the yen is at a lower rate right now, that means the US dollar is higher. So you're going to get more bang for your buck, and that's just true regardless. There's so many more cheeses, there's so many more sauces, there is even different vegetables from what we have. Just shop off base when it comes to groceries. I also love the convenies here. And when I say conveni, that's going to mean the convenience store. And their food is so good. And I know it sounds weird that food from a convenience store would be good, but convenience stores here are on a whole other level. And I mean, they have onigiri, their egg sandwiches are so good, and everyone has their own chicken, or so it seems. The biggest ones that I see everywhere are going to be 7-Eleven, Lawson's, and Family Mart. Those three you will see almost everywhere, and they each have their own chicken. Now, there is hot debate on which chicken is the best, and for me, it just depends on my mood. But Lawson's was my favorite for a bit. Might be turning into 7-Eleven though. So check them out. Plus, they're not just for food. So you don't get gas at these ones. They're just food. But you can pick up packages while you're there. There's usually an ATM or a place to sit down. And you can also make reservations there for Universal and Disneyland. So check them out. They're for a lot more than just food. So speaking of reservations seem to be an almost must here. And I think it's probably just because the amount of people that live here, but you need reservations in advance for almost everything, even restaurants. And not all restaurants, but for the most part, you do. So when it comes to things like Disneyland and Universal, you're definitely going to want to try to plan those out in advance. Typically, you'll see people try to get tickets a month in advance. Now, it just depends on the time of year, but for those bigger trips, you're gonna want to try to think those out ahead of time. Now, when it comes to restaurants, I found during the week I can usually get in pretty easy. I can usually just make a reservation right then and there at the front. They have like a little check-in. But if you're gonna have a bigger party or things like that, you're definitely gonna want to make a reservation in advance. Now, the only bad thing is if you see like a little SpongeBob pop-up and you really want to go to it and you want to get in that day, it's probably not gonna happen, which is a bummer because you don't always know about these things. So, pros and cons. I think this is true almost everywhere now, but in Japan especially, I've noticed that cash is king. So I always just try to carry around cash on me because if we are taking the tolls, some of them are only cash because we don't have an ETC card. Smaller vendors are only going to take cash, not always, but sometimes. And especially like farmers markets, you're definitely going to want to have cash because most of them are not going to accept card. So I always just have cash on me, especially because there's a ton of vending machines around here. And there are a ton. So if I want like a water or something like that, it's just easier to have cash on hand because not all of them take cards. So speaking of vending machines, there are vending machines everywhere. It's mostly drinks, but I have also seen like ramen vending machines, bread vending machines, and dessert vending machines. There are ice cream vending machines too. And I love it here. It's so great. But with those vending machines, they don't always have recycling bins next to them. So you'll find that Japan rarely has trash cans. So if we're going on a big adventure, I always make sure to have a backpack because I know half the time I'm just gonna have to put my trash in my backpack until I see a trash can or recycling bin. So you don't really see trash around here. There's not really a whole lot of litter. In the bigger cities you might because there's more people, things like that, but typically it's pretty clean here. So one thing I was worried about when we got here was like etiquette and like the general rules for society. And while there are kind of general etiquette things, it's mostly just about being respectful about and thinking about the people around you. So as long as you're not being an obnoxious butt, you're usually pretty good. Alright, so the next thing that you'll really see, there are stairs everywhere. And I mean shrines, trains, just everywhere. There are stairs everywhere. That and lines. There are so many lines that people form, and it's kind of nice. But when you come here, expect a lot of walking. While people do drive their cars, I feel like trains and bikes and just walking are the general modes of transportation. Now, I will make a whole video on trains because they can be a bit intimidating. I've gotten more comfortable with them, but it's definitely taken me a few trips. So I want to make a whole video for you guys about kind of how to take trains and like the different lines and finding platforms because everything's color coded and it can still be confusing, but I think a whole video would be good. All right, the last thing I want to mention is Google Maps is your friend. Google Maps is your friend, especially when it comes to trains or just getting around. Trains especially, because it'll kind of break everything down for you. But Google Maps, I found, has gotten us everywhere the best. I've tried Apple Maps, I've tried Waze, and Google Maps just happens to be the one that's gotten us there consistently every time without confusing us. So it's been great. I will also say Google Translate or DeepL are going to be your friends. Because while in the big city you can get away with speaking English or knowing minimal Japanese, if you are going to like the small cities or like the mountain cities, you're gonna find that not a whole lot of people speak English. So having a way to speak with them is definitely gonna come in handy. And on that note, I want to again emphasize that learn the basics. Just learn hello, thank you, excuse me, and please, because making those small efforts goes a long, long way. All right, that's all I have for now. And while this video did touch on some of the things that you can expect when you're new to Yokota and Japan, there's so much more that I want to share with you guys. So if you liked this video, do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Keep an eye out for future videos. Maybe we'll talk about trains, or a Don Quixote haul, or even a conveni run. But that's all I got for you guys today. Until next time.